physical properties being properties that we can see and observe without having to change the identity of that substance. So today we're going to talk about chemical properties. So the definition of a chemical property is a property that describes matter based on its ability to change into new matter that has different properties. So, and this is the opposite of what we looked at with physical properties. This is the ability for the identity to actually change. That has to happen. It has to be the ability to do that for it to be a chemical property. So, a couple of big examples is our flammability and reactivity. So, flammability is the ability to catch on fire. If something is burning, it is changing its identity. It's changing, it's going through a chemical reaction when it burns. And the ability to burn, flammability, is its chemical property. Reactivity, if something is reactive with something else, so let's say something's reactive with water, which means if it comes in contact with water, it's going to stoke a chemical reaction. If it is reactive with water, that is its chemical property because it's going to trigger a chemical reaction. Another one would be toxicity, the ability to be toxic to something, the ability to poison something or harm something. You can't tell if something is toxic by just looking at it. You have to actually test it, ingest it to see if something is toxic. Same goes with flammability. You can't tell something is flammable unless you actually make the reaction happen, unless you actually catch it on fire. You can't tell if something's reactive with water unless you put water on it and make the chemical reaction happen. So you can only see chemical properties if you're actually having the reaction happen, whether it's catching on fire, it being toxic, it being reactive with another substance. That is the only way to observe these types of properties. Physical properties, you can observe without changing the identity. They're typically things just in general about the appearance, like color and density, if it can conduct electricity, whereas chemical properties you can't see quite as easily because you have to have some kind of reaction happen in order for you to observe those properties. Most items have characteristic properties, so most elements have characteristic properties, and these are properties that are really useful to us in identifying the matter. So they're something that is pretty unique to this. They're not necessarily unique. Other elements may have those properties too, but it's something that that element always has. So maybe there is some kind of substance that is always shiny, always yellow, always magnetic. I'm completely making this up, but if you go through and I try to identify what that is, if you're not sure on what that element is, you could look back and say, okay, well, what are the characteristic properties of different elements, and then try to match that up, which is a lab we are actually going to be doing here pretty soon. So these properties, because they're characteristic of the element, they're always going to stay the same, no matter if you've got just like water, its boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius. The boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius, whether you have an ounce of water or you have a pool full of water. So that no matter what size, you're going to have those properties. So whether they're physical or they're chemical, there's something that property or that substance always has, making it easier to identify them.